but most of the kids that I've spoken to admit that they have trouble speaking. Hi there, Steve Coffin here, and today I want to talk to you about immersion and language learning. Remember, if you enjoyed these videos, please subscribe, click on the bell so you get notified whenever I put up a new video. And if you follow me on a podcast service, especially if you're learning English, which it's a good thing to do, leave a comment. I do appreciate it. So, we hear a lot about immersion. The way to learn a language is to immerse yourself in the language. The image is sort of jumping into a lake or a swimming pool and covering yourself in the language, and that way somehow you'll learn the language. And immersion can have different meanings, and I want to touch on some of these here, particularly as it pertains to a learning strategy that we can use. So as a young child, and I experienced this as a 5-year-old coming to Canada from Sweden, I started playing with kids. I have no recollection of no longer speaking Swedish, speaking English. We spoke English at home with my parents very quickly. Swedish was gone. I had been immersed in an environment where I had lots of input from my friends, where I was totally uninhibited. I was simply immersed in the language. I learned it. I think a similar form of immersion is what happens in those countries where television programs and movies are in English or in the original language. Kids watch cartoons and stuff in English, and when they go to school, they're already familiar with English. So that's sort of the natural immersion approach to language learning. Now, before going on to how we might use immersion, say as adults, to learn a language, I'd like to talk about another example of immersion, and that is immersion, say, in the school systems. For example, in the English-speaking school system in Canada, the French immersion program is very popular. So we have, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of English-speaking kids that take all of their schooling in French. So they sit in a classroom with other English-speaking kids, and the teacher speaks to them in French. The material they use is all in French, and they learn their chemistry and their history and their mathematics all in French. So it's called immersion. And those kids end up with a much better level of comprehension in French than kids that are in the conventional French stream in the school system. However, and I've had 3 grandchildren go to French immersion, they don't end up speaking all that well. They have quite good comprehension, but most of the kids that I've spoken to admit that they have trouble speaking, which is not surprising because they haven't spoken very much. They speak English with their classmates or with their friends, and once they get home, they speak English, and everything around them, in fact, is in English. So it's only the classroom situation which is immersion. Now, on the positive side, with a good level of comprehension, if those kids go off to a French-speaking place, be it the province of Quebec or France or Belgium or maybe somewhere in Africa, they will very quickly see their ability to produce the language, improve dramatically because they have good comprehension. And so they will quickly be able to speak quite well. So it is a good program from that point of view. It gives them a base, gives them vocabulary, gives them comprehension. And the speaking, to speak well, you have to speak a lot. They don't speak a lot, so they don't speak well. So that's the sort of language immersion programs in our schools. And I think it's not only French immersion, I've heard of Spanish immersion, Chinese or Mandarin immersion, and other immersion programs on the same model. Now, how about as an independent adult learner? You sometimes hear people say, well, I'll just go to the country and immerse myself in the language and I will learn it naturally. That's not such a good strategy, because what I have seen is when people move to a country where another language is spoken, if they don't make a deliberate effort to learn that language, they're not going to learn it, and they will probably fit into a pattern of relying on English. There are a number of reasons for this. First of all, the locals there who speak Spanish or Chinese or Czech, they're not teachers. They simply want to communicate. And if they sense that you don't communicate in their language as well as they communicate in English, they're going to switch to English. So whenever I have used immersion as a strategy, but I always prepare for it. So if we are going to say, I want to go to Mexico, I want to go to Italy, I want to go to, wherever, Poland, and I want to use visiting the country and even staying in the country as a way to learn the language, then I have to have a plan. And that plan should consist of making sure that you hit the ground running. In other words, that you are sufficiently well prepared so that you can take advantage of being surrounded by the language. And that's what I've done. I spent a year doing a lot of listening and reading in Czech. Then I went to Prague. I set up with teachers so that I could have that opportunity to speak to people. And then I supplemented that with whatever random, encounters I could have with Czech people. But you can't rely on random people kind of humoring you in the language that you are trying to learn. The better you speak that language, the more likely they are to respond to you in that language. I often hear people complain. They go to Germany, they go to a store, they ask for something in German, the answer comes back in English. However, if your German is good enough, they won't reply in English, they'll reply in German. They just want to communicate. So if your strategy is somehow to use immersion as a means of learning a language, I would say use immersion as a means of improving in the language, and set yourself a sort of a plan of how you're going to get your comprehension, much like those kids in French immersion in the English school system in Canada. They've got a level of comprehension. They've got a level of vocabulary so that if they're put in a French-speaking environment, very quickly they'll be able to speak well. So you won't have the benefit of 10 years of French immersion in school, but you can certainly expose yourself to a lot of listening and reading in the language, building up your comprehension so that when you arrive in the country, fairly quickly you can sort of start interacting with people at an adult level. So I think with immersion, it sounds sort of like magic. I'll just go to Japan, and once I'm there, I'll just learn Japanese. It's probably more difficult than that. And there are so many things that you can do before you get to, say, Japan, to ensure that you hit the ground running. So just a comment here on immersion. It can be a good strategy, but I think it does take some planning. And if you do it right, it can be a great way to develop a high level of proficiency in a language. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.